Ohio State, I see an under at 10.5 or minus 115. I'm on that. Like, I look at that schedule. I think they are up against it. Listen, when you look at season win totals, I look at the possible games a team could lose.
Hello, welcome in. It's always college football. Today is Friday, week 0 eve, here in August of 2023. I'm Greg McElroy, your host. Appreciate y'all being with us. We have a jam-packed show today. We have yet to do some regular season win totals. We've yet to make some picks against the spread. We have resisted the urge to talk about gambling lines here on Always College Football. Today is your day. Now, we won't do it as often as we did it last year. We did it every single week last year, but we're going to have some nuggets in there every single week that you need to be prepared for. Will we dedicate an entire show to gambling? Probably not anytime soon, but today is dedicated to gambling. And even if you don't gamble, you can still get valuable information from the content of the conversation that we're going to have with Stanford Steve Coughlin. He's been with Scott Van Pelt forever. They've done bad beats. They've done all that fun stuff. He's now moving over to College Game Day, where he is going to be a fixture. They're picking games against the spread on a week-to-week basis, so we look forward to our visit with him. I'm also going to tell you about some games this weekend. We're not going to break down what San Jose State has to do to pull off what would be one of the biggest upset in modern-day college football history. We're not going to do that. But I will tell you what I want to see from Notre Dame. I will tell you what I want to see from USC. What position groups am I going to focus on the most when those teams take the field? Also give you a little bit on Vanderbilt as well. So without much further ado, it's Stanford Steve Coughlin right here on Always College Football. Our gambling preview this year is with Stanford Steve, who we're very excited about seeing him on College Game Day each and every Saturday from wherever it is the College Game Day is coming to us from. Steve, are you excited for this journey? You understand that you're going to be held accountable for your picks, though. You do get that, right?
I know what it is, Greg. Like we've done this a time or two. Listen, I've grown accustomed to it. All anybody wants, you'll only hear people when you lose, and the expectation is I'm going to have to pick 6 every week. That's a no-win situation. There's no way I'm winning giving 6 picks. So I'm thinking about maybe throwing in some money lines.
That's so soft.
Help the cause. Why? Well, I mean, we all love underdogs. Why not just take a couple on the money line?
Well, if you take underdogs on the money line, I can live with. But if you're going,
that's what I'm talking about. We got to have some underdogs on the money line every week for people. But no, I'm absolutely jacked up for the opportunity. You and I, growing up playing the sport, that's how you start your Saturday mornings. Everybody races down the pregame meal, that first meal of the day, and let's get back and lay in bed and watch Herbie and the guys. So to be able to be on the set with those guys is just awesome. And I'll be with you week 1.
That could be good or bad, depending on what we decide to get into on.
We'll focus on the post game. We know we got work to do pregame.
Well, we're going to win the weekend, though. There's no denying that. Absolutely. Let's get into some regular season win totals, because there's a bunch that have actually jumped to me that I'm feeling better about. At first, I'm like, man, some of these lines look pretty good. And then I start to look at maybe some of the matchups and where some of those matchups are played and what the line might look like 2, 3, 4 weeks from now, 2 months from now in some cases. And I'm starting to feel a little better about a few, but I'll give you the floor first. Give me a couple of regular season win totals that you're all over at the moment.
I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 written down. So
7.
We can get through them. Yeah, I like you said, I've seen some numbers change in the direction like I've wanted to bet the other side. So like Ohio State, I see an under at 10.5 or minus 115. I'm on that. Like I look at that schedule, I think they are up against it. Listen, when you look at season win totals, I look at the possible games a team can lose, right?
Right.
And when I look at Ohio State, I'm not really worried about them not naming a quarterback right now. I do think it's interesting that Ryan Day has given the play calling to Hartline, but I still think that's as friendly of a system as there is for a quarterback. Now, are they going to be as good as the last couple they've had? I don't see that.
right?
Especially early on. But when you look early on, that game at Notre Dame is, I don't know how that matchup. I like the matchup for Notre Dame, knowing that they are going to play a physical team in Navy in week 0, and then they get a home crowd. Their 2 deep was announced. I like the looks of that, knowing that Ohio State has a lot of holes to fill on the offensive side. And I don't care who you are. When you have new guys playing on the offensive line and you go on the road in a big-time environment, you are fully tested to see that. So, I look at that as a losable game. That's early. And then the Penn State-Michigan thing, whatever, that's another 2. So, and then I don't know what Wisconsin's going to be. I like them to start the year, but I don't know how that roster is going to play out throughout the course of the season. So I look at multiple possible losing games. Give me under 10.5 at -115 for Ohio State. Next, I look at a team making a transition, Greg, and that's Houston. There was a 5 I first saw. That was one of the first things I bet in the season win totals. I still like it under at 4.5 at +115 I've seen this morning. I think about teams that have made the jump to bigger conferences, and there hasn't been a lot of success. When you look at all, I mean, that's all anyone's talked about this year is all the change and get it. I understand. It's what they are. But when you look at what the 2 teams I could think of that have had success in making the jump is Utah and TCU.
Right.
But when you look at them, they got waxed their first year when they stepped up to the conference. And I look at Houston as a team that wasn't great last year. You look at the build. I love Dana as much as anybody, probably the best guy to have a beer with when you're talking head coaches in the country. But he'll admit it, he's not as buttoned up as other places are. And now you bring in a transfer quarterback. I thought Tank Dell I think he's going to be a great pro. That's a huge loss because he's a dominant asset to have on the perimeter. And when you look at what Houston is stacked up against in week 1, in a game they should have lost last year to UTSA, that's a losable game. And then you look at the gauntlet of the Big 12 with a roster that is not there yet. Listen, you know as well as anybody, they got a great recruiting base to recruit from, and with the teams leaving, they should make some strides in recruiting moving forward with Oklahoma and Texas moving ahead to the SEC. But I don't think it's there. I think it's going to be. I think they're set to be. Everybody talks about who's going to be the worst team: Cincinnati, West Virginia. I would put money on it's going to be Houston. I just don't think they have the wherewithal. So I like Houston under 4.5 +115.
Love those. I think Houston, that would be one that I'd really jump at because I'm with you. I think they are right now, roster-wise with the turnover, they're probably the most difficult team to project in the Big 12. And you referenced the TCU jump and the Utah jump. That first year, the transition year, people have pointed to Texas A&M and Missouri when they jumped to the SEC, the immediate success that they experienced. They went from Power 5 to Power 5.
Yeah.
When you go from G5 to Power 5, it's very, very different. I'll give you a couple just to nibble on. Love Wisconsin over 8.5. That's been one of my favorite plays of the entire offseason. The number's big. I am worried a little bit knowing that their last 5 games are all going to be outside, all going to be in environments that could impact the passing game, especially there in Madison. But I look at their entire list of games. The only game where they're going to be a significant dog is against Ohio State, where they host Ohio State in Camp Randall at night. And if Ohio State's got problems on the perimeter as far as giving up big plays like they did a year ago, then guess what? Wisconsin's probably going to be able to take advantage of that. I still don't think they're going to abandon their running game either because Phil Longo, everyone thinks of him as an air raid guy, a guy that stretches the field vertically. Yes, he does that. He also at North Carolina led the ACC in rushing over the last 4 years. So I think people don't realize that 1-2 punch at running back is still going to get a ton of opportunities in this offense. Another one I love, Kentucky over 7. Kentucky is improved at quarterback. Devin Leary is not the prospect that Will Levis is, but he is a better college player. Assuming the offensive line is better. Big assumption. I understand that. The wide receivers, they were young last year, but talented. Now they're experienced and talented. Running back Ray Davis is going to be excellent, and they're always solid on the defensive side. Now, you get Bama, you get Georgia. I don't love that, but I wouldn't be surprised if they could take on Tennessee. I wouldn't be surprised if they could take on just about everybody else in the East, not named Georgia. So I love the over of 7 with Kentucky, and then I'm going to give you another one, keeping it there in the state of Kentucky. Not Louisville yet. Getting there in a minute. Western Kentucky, 8.5's the number. Conference USA is a little different now with so many teams now jumping to the American. We've lost a few teams from that great league, Conference USA. And Western Kentucky, they bring back their quarterback. And if you look at just how things stack up, Ohio State and Troy on the schedule, very possible to be an underdog in each of those two games. But pretty much every other game, they have a real strong chance of being the favorite. You have Austin Reed, veteran guy, decided to stay there, continue on what he was doing offensively. They've won 9 games in each of the last 3 seasons that weren't impacted by COVID-19. And when you kind of just look how everything stacks up, they're going to be in a really good spot. So over 8.5 there. And then, like I said, Louisville. Louisville comes in with the number right now at 8, 8.5 in some places, 8 in most places. But I look at Jeff Brom and think of what kind of coach is he? What kind of coach is Jeff Brom? Now, they get Notre Dame on the schedule. Tough game, naturally. Yeah. But you avoid a couple other spots. You get Georgia Tech, Murray State, Indiana, Boston College. I mean, there's a strong chance you're 4-0. There's 4 right there. I got to find 4 or 5 more. And the back end of the schedule, man, they play a lot of teams that are very, very gettable, and most of those games are going to be in their backyard. So I think Jack Plummer coming over in a really good spot, understands the offense, had a decent year at Cal last year, and has a lot more experience than he did when he took the field as Jeff Brom's quarterback at Purdue. And I think the upgrade that they've had with some of the weapons on the perimeter will be significant. And the defense, maybe not quite as disruptive as they were a year ago, but they have a chance to be close to what they were a year ago. So I'm taking the over. That's 4 overs for you. I have a couple unders too. I'm not just going to, blow smoke all the time, Stevie. But I like those 4 overs, 3 of which from the great state of Kentucky.
Another over I like is SMU.
Wow.
I'm there. I am. I think Rhett is ready to go. I love what they did. When you talk about what he wants to do and what he's supplanted in those roles as far as getting the ball to his best playmakers, I like him. I am fired up for the Oklahoma game. I think that is a real test. Knowing what Oklahoma's schedule is, I think SMU is very dangerous in that game, and I like SMU as a shot to win that conference. So I'm on SMU. An under, I look at USC. I see an under 10 this morning at minus 120. I listen, you're going to have to withstand how good they're going to look because their schedule to start is nothing. But then they go to Notre Dame, they get Washington, they got to go to Oregon. UCLA is a rivalry game. So that's 4 right there that are losable games, I think, for USC. I get it. Lincoln has talked about how, he's not worried about the offense. And obviously, when you look at what he's done on the defensive side and investing in transfers, I get it. They can only be better on the defensive side of the ball. But I'm sure we're going to talk week 0. But I go back to last year. I had Rice against USC, right? And Rice, I think they were getting 35 or something. SC had 3 pick sixes in that game. And it was just, and I think they won by, 30 plus, whatever. They were so fortunate last year with not only did they get those turnovers, but what they did scoring off of them. And that was the defense scoring, I think, almost half of those, whether it was a pick 6 or a scoop and score. So I just see that trend coming back down. So if you could get it under 10, I like that. I think I'm drinking the Florida State Kool-Aid.
Who isn't? Everybody is. You're not the only one. I've been hard pressed to find anybody that's against them.
I'm going with that. I feel like Louisville, everybody just looks at the schedule. As you pointed out, they do get Notre Dame. But Florida State, as much as tough as those LSU and Clemson games early in September are, they are winnable. I mean, I don't know what else Florida State could want going into a season. When you talk about a coach that went through turmoil through COVID and players calling him out, and now sustaining what he's done with the portal, but also getting recruits to come in and having a foundation there, and the quarterback putting more on his plate every single week last year, the improvement that they saw. And also, too, this is I don't want to be sweating through the whole season, Greg. I know if they lose too early that we're up against it. So those first two games are 2 losable games at Clemson. I think it's on the 23rd, and obviously Labor Day night against LSU in Orlando, we're going to know early. And my wild card, just because I love the kid and he was up against it last year in Charlottesville, is NC State over 6.5. I love what Dave Doeren brings to the table, and I love Brennan Armstrong. I just think him reunited with Anai is a great match, and NC State is like the ultimate team. Like we just talked about drinking the Kool-Aid.
Right.
Like last year, it got a little too crazy. You lose Larry, you're done. And now they're kind of laying in the weeds. That's where I like Dave Doeren. What he did in Northern Illinois, going back to his Wisconsin days, creating and establishing what they have in Raleigh with Brennan Armstrong and knowing what Dave likes to do on defense and being, a pain in the ass all the time. That's a good mix that I'll take. And 6.5, I feel like is a good number to get to. I easily see them winning 7 games.
I love that. I'm going to go with one more over and then give you a sequence of unders here. Oregon State, I love the over on 8. I think that they have arguably.
How about 8.5?
Is it up to 8.5 now?
I've seen 8.5. Yeah.
Well,
I know you got it in early.
I'm going to keep it. I'm going to keep it where I got it for the sake of.
I just because 8.5 changes it for me.
It does big time. I think that's totally fair. But when you really take things into account, you avoid SC.
Yep.
Who they, by the way, matched up pretty well against last year. Were their own worst enemy with 4 turnovers in the game. Mm-hmm. You get Utah, UCLA, and Washington all at home. Mm-hmm. And look, with the Utah to me is a question mark right now. Cam Rising, seeing the number fluctuate in week 1 has me all anxious. Knowing that their backup quarterback sustained the injury there in the first scrimmage of the season, that has me anxious as well. So I'm looking at Oregon State right now, and I look at the 3 home games and avoiding SC. This could be a team that might have 9 wins going into the Oregon game, which is on the road, who I think they match up pretty well against. Now,
no doubt.
And look, you improve immediately at the quarterback spot. And for all DJ Uiagalelei's flaws, and there are plenty, him off of play action and him down the field is still a really good strength. That was one thing he did do extremely well at Clemson, was he hit the downfield throws. Now, he missed most of the intermediates. He missed some of the underneath. He was slow in processing some of the things in the middle of the field. But if you give him heavy play action, he's really just 1 to 2 to run. That's massive. Plus his legs are a huge element of this offense as well. We already know Martinez is going to get his yards. We know that offensive line is going to move people. We know that. Mm-hmm. Now you have to account for the potential quarterback keep on the zone read. You have to account for quarterback run power on short yardage situations. So I think Oregon State has the mentality, the physicality to match up with everybody in the entire Pac-12. I might even sprinkle just a little bit on Oregon State to win the Pac-12 if they get an opportunity to tee it up against SC or Washington or Oregon again in the Pac-12 championship game. That's a team I would not want to play. Let's keep it out west. I'm going under 3.5 with the Colorado Buffaloes. Now, I understand that they are the hottest team since sliced bread as far as where they're at as compared to what they won last year and what they did on the field to the hype surrounding the program now. I understand the turnover. I understand there's a lot of new faces. I understand the talent has improved drastically, but the culture is probably not going to be created overnight. I'm hopeful that it is. I want Deion to win. I want him to go bowling. I want him to be a big part of college football moving forward. I just don't know if it's there. And I look at the bodies, and I've been watching the tape, and we're looking at the bodies spring game, looking at some of the clips they put out from practice. I don't see a lot of physically mature dudes in the front 7 defensively. I also look, too, at some of the schedule. The schedule is tricky. You got TCU. You got Nebraska. You got some other games that are very, very losable. So I look at 3.5, and I'm trying to figure out where they get there. I think they're an underdog in 11 games. And I look at the Colorado State game, probably get that one. But then again, Colorado State, I think, has a chance to be a little bit better as well. So I am going to fade Colorado at the moment and take the under of 3.5. I'm also going to take the under with Minnesota. And they're right now at 7. Some places you can even find it at 7.5, but this one's kind of fluctuated all over the place. I've seen it 6.5, seen it 7, seen it 7.5. So let's split the difference and go at 7. They've won 29 games over the last 3 years, not including 2020, which is pretty dang impressive. Yeah. They obviously lose Tanner Morgan, but Ethan Kaliakmanis was the guy down the stretch last year anyway. I think Ethan Kaliakmanis has a really good chance of being a successful player down the road. I just don't love his supporting cast. Mm-hmm. Right now, I think the offensive line will be rock solid. And Mo Ibrahim, I think about what he meant to the program last year and the games that he was unavailable last year. They couldn't do a whole lot. He was that important. And I look at the receivers, the separation and the consistency within that group last year, not great. Tight end, they got a good one, but he's not a crazy beat you up in matchups type of guy. He's a big body. He's an imposing figure, but he's not that guy that I'm going to feature in the passing game. So I just don't know if they have enough weapons. They'll be good on defense, but probably regress a little bit because they did lose some key pieces at the second level on that side. But I just don't know where they get to 7. I don't know where they get to 8. I look at how things match up. All right, the Nebraska opener, I think that's a toss-up. You got North Carolina. I think that's an interesting game. You got Ohio State and Michigan. You also have Illinois, Iowa, and Wisconsin. All 3 teams, I think, are ahead of where Minnesota's at right now. So I'm looking at least 4, maybe 5 losses before we even get to the Nebraska and Carolina game. So I think it's a tricky situation to be in. So I take the under with PJ Flex Gophers at the moment.
Yeah, just going back to Colorado too. You mentioned the Nebraska and Colorado State games. I have those. I mean, all their games are losable. You mentioned the deficiencies in the roster. Like, you could know, because they're not going to Oregon and winning, they're not beating SC at home. Like, you could know after week 3 if you're good. As long as they don't get any of those, you're in the clear. They're not. There's no way they're getting the 4. So I like that. In Minnesota, yeah, like, this feels like the big step. Like, PJ was able to come in, establish his culture, whether people like it or not. We've seen what's happened with former players and all that. But now, with the true quarterback change and a true roster, like they have Ibrahim. I mean, he was a local kid here in D.C. that I got to watch his last year. Love the kid. And, I mean, it was smart. The way they built that and the way they built play action off of that, and they had those monsters up front. They played to their strengths and playing in cold weather and stuff like that. But now this feels like the year where Minnesota – are they going to take this next step? I'm with you. I don't see it. I think they regress big time.
I think we're on the same page. Let's do some futures. I'll give you the floor. Let's start with the Big 12. Anything that you like in the Big 12?
I will say this. We just got done with win totals. Texas did not come up. I would rather take – I think it's even money for Texas to win the conference. I would much rather take Texas to win the conference than worry about that season win total.
I'm with you.
Knowing you don't have to deal with the game in Tuscaloosa in week 2. You know, like, just from a whatever people want to say value, or just what you take out a huge predicament in what can happen with a win total. I think Texas is, I mean, if it's not now, it's never. You talk to everybody around there, they're as excited as they've been, whether it's coaching staff, administration, with where the roster is, and knowing that the majority of that staff comes from the SEC, knowing what they have or knowing what they have inside the locker room, knowing what that trip is going to be like, and knowing what they have to do to win that game. I do wonder, maybe it's a conversation for later, your thoughts on if the loser of that game could make the playoff. Like, I just feel like if Texas
don't bet it right now.
Game,
let's wait a couple weeks and we'll put a little action on that.
I just big picture is everybody's trying to ask for playoff teams, whatever.
Right.
I think TCU is going to be a harder out than people give them are talking about them. So I think they got an upgrade in an offensive coordinator. I think Briles is a guy, and when you mentioned Colorado, what's Colorado going to look like after week 1? Like, how's that locker room, all that stuff you built up through the offseason, all the positive momentum and everything. Like, if they go in and get blasted, you got to get up for Nebraska, who's going to be as hungry as a team as there is. So I think TCU is set. You know, Morris was the guy, and we know what happened there. But I love the way Sonny Dykes does. People aren't really talking about, like, they're going to have people, mentioning that they went to the title game and got blasted. That's fine. But all those guys are gone. I think they are going to be a tough out. Oklahoma, the schedule plays out pretty fortunate for them. But there's a lot of proven to me there. Out west in the Pac-12, I think the wild card in the Pac-12 is Oregon, because I look at Will Stein, and I think it's one of the trickiest positions to be in the country, because Bo Nix didn't even think he was going to play that well last year.
Right.
And he was out of his mind good. And then down the stretch, he gets hurt. He still gets the win against Utah, but, they don't make it into the Pac-12 championship. But now you're Will Stein. You come in with your own beliefs, but then you're watching a tape of seeing what Bo Nix did under Dillingham. Like, how do you balance that?
Yeah.
And the guys that they lost, they lose offensive linemen. I think that's a really, really tricky deal to be put into, knowing what the expectations are, because they saw, like, Eugene people only know Bo Nix from last year.
Yeah.
Like, I still don't think that's the Bo Nix we're going to see in the future. So, Oregon, I don't like it. I know you like Washington a lot because of what they bring to the table roster-wise. I look at it for a price. I look at UCLA.
Like that.
Because they don't have to play Washington or Oregon.
Right.
And Chip Kelly's a guy who's won a national championship with a freshman quarterback. So he is not really a quarterback-dependent system. They do have a lot of changeover in the offensive line. They have to get that worked out before the road trip to Utah. You mentioned they have to go to Corvallis. But no more divisions. I look at UCLA for a price in the schedule. That's a team that I would lean on to take as a wild card to win the Pac-12.
Yeah, 14-1 right now in some places.
Yeah.
So I don't hate that price at all. I already referenced Oregon State. You can get them at 11-1. I kind of like that action. Just the matchup, I just don't think they're a team anyone wants to play. They're a little bit like Utah in a sense that, man, they are really built inside out. And now with improved quarterback play, like Utah got with Cam Rising, now DJ Uiagalelei at Oregon State, they could be in a real position to do some nice things. Oregon's 3-1 to win the Pac-12 right now. I would stay away. I'm just not with them, right? I think they're good. I just, like you said, I have some questions, just some questions. I think they had a great year last year, turned things around after what was a tricky week one, caught fire. Bo Nix got confident. They tried to do a little too much early, then they simplified it, and he played better down the stretch as a result. So I'm with you on the Oregon side. I like Oregon a lot. I just don't know if I can go 3-1 to win the Pac-12. That to me is a bridge just a little bit too far, because the Pac-12 is going to be a complete survive, whatever it takes to survive. And I think it's going to be the lesser of many evils when starting to evaluate. I don't like the price on SC either. Love SC. No. Think they're a good team. Don't see them getting to 10 wins. I don't see them getting to a point which they're within striking distance of the playoff unless I know for sure that defense is improved drastically. And I don't know at the moment if it's going to be. So I like Texas, by the way, back to the Big 12 discussion. I would go Texas plus 110, even money, whatever it is. I would take them right now, because with the format, everyone's going to circle Texas. We understand that. That's understandable. Yep. But I think if you can't, it's going to be very difficult to beat Texas twice if you beat them at all. And I think just looking at everybody else in the Big 12, everyone else has major questions. Texas doesn't have that many. You look at their losses last year, all one-possession games, a couple of 14-point leads blown. I think they're going to be better this year. And I just have a hard time envisioning anybody surpassing them there in the Big 12. Is there anyone else you like as far as a conference championship price?
I'm with you. I'm pretty sure they're the favorite by a good number, but Wisconsin to win the Big Ten West.
Plus 125 or so. I
think that's
not great. Yeah, I mean, but it's worth it. Yeah, it's worth it. I'm with you.
You brought up the schedule. Going back to your Oregon State thing just real quick, they're also like playing there. I will just say it flat out sucks. Like, you got to stay in Eugene. You drive to Corvallis. Everybody sees you coming in. And now Reser Stadium is done. Like, they've redone that thing, I think, 3 times since I played there. And now it's all done. And that you mentioned the teams they get to come there. That's a dangerous a spot for any team to go to, because it's brutal. There's a lot of mean and evil in those people in Corvallis.
You get that chainsaw going, man. It's a little different. That's for sure.
And I mean, SEC, I like Bama at the price. Plus 300 I saw. I think it's worth it. I look at what they have, I love the hire of Tommy Rees. I think, especially when you look at what Bama wants to bring to the table, I think they have to be better on the offensive line.
Yeah.
I really don't think it's I go back to, everybody wants to talk about the quarterback. I trust Nick and Tommy that's going to be taken care of, and the defense is going to be only better. And you get LSU at home, where is a team that is sort of like, I don't know. I still need to see. LSU has to prove to me they're better. And I worry about what they've done on the back end with the secondary, bringing in transfers to play there. They are going to get tested in that first game against Florida State. That I mean, you start off 0-1 again, and then all that air is out of that balloon. So I look at Alabama. as a very formidable, and it's been years since we've seen that price for them. So I look at Bama to win the SEC. I like that number.
Yeah, it's hard. I would not push back on that. That'd be the play I'd make in the SEC. The only other play I could possibly see, I mean, I guess you could get LSU 4.5, 5-1. If you're going to go long shot, it's A&M by a mile at 14-1 or so, depending on where you get it. That's the team that I would, without question, back if I'm trying to take a flyer. In the ACC, it's so chalky. I can't get behind Clemson right now. There's too many unknowns. I still have question marks about Cade Klubnik. I have question marks about their wide receivers. I think they have one that's elite. I think they have two that are good, but they need to be elite if the offense is going to be what it ultimately wants to be. Love their running back. Offensive line should be solid, but the front seven defensively, I just don't think it is what it's been. That's where I'm at with Clemson. So I'd avoid Florida State and Clemson. If I'm going to sprinkle some action, I'm going Louisville. And I don't love, obviously, the likelihood of them winning it. I do love their schedule. They get 4 of the last 5 at home. I think the most difficult games on the schedule are at Pitt, at NC State. They get Notre Dame at home, but that doesn't impact whether or not they win the ACC. So if I can get them at 10-1, I'll sprinkle that. They get an opportunity to play against Florida State. They played them pretty well last year, I might add, in the regular season. They get them potentially in the ACC championship game. I'll roll the dice at 10-1 for sure. So I think that's a team that I would be willing to back in the ACC if I'm going long shot. But really across the board, I mean, if I'm going long shots, it's Oregon State in the Pac-12. I guess in the Big 12, it's almost difficult to go long shot.
What do you think about Lubbock?
I like Lubbock. I like Baylor maybe a little bit better. If I'm going crazy long shot, I think they're going to be good. I kind of like them as a long shot. So Baylor probably in the Big 12, A&M in the SEC, Louisville in the ACC, and then Wisconsin in the Big 10. In the Big Power 5 leagues, those are the long shots I would back. Any disagreement or any that you'd like to also add?
No, I think Penn State's up against it in the Big 10. All the positive vibes coming out of there, but you're still going to have to go to Columbus. I think they have a really, really tricky game in Champaign early on. I think that's week 4. We're going to really find out what they have at the quarterback position in that game because Illinois is going to be a pain in the butt. They are not going to give you anything easy.
Right.
And when you look at Penn State and you're talking about a transfer wide receiver from a MAC school being your difference maker, I'm sorry. I need to hear more, especially when you have a kid who hasn't played quarterback in big spots before. So I know they got the run game. Their offensive line, people are talking them up. I need to see them play well in Champaign for me to be a believer. Michigan, you come at home, you go put that tape on. You want to watch that one again? I mean, that was as ugly as it got. They're lucky they got that fluke touchdown in the first half to be in that game. So, the teams to make the playoff, everybody brings up Florida State, Penn State. I don't think I could get there. I think Penn State, I would take Penn State over Ohio State as far as wins. If I had to take a win total there, I don't love it.
Right.
So, Michigan obviously is the favorite. Texas Tech is the team in the Big 12 that the problem is they have to take almost 2 jumps to make the title game. And when you look at that schedule, it's a tricky start. Like, you don't know what the hell's going to happen in Laramie. And then you got the Ducks coming in. And as much as I love what McGuire has done, I worry. I mean, Shuck hasn't played a whole season. You need your quarterback to play the whole year, especially if you're looking to make 2 jumps in the conference. So that's a team I would say. I think Kansas State's going to be a pain. Also, if you could get it to them to make the Big 12 title game, I think that's worth a shot. They're just trusting what Kleiman has done. I get it. They lost their best defensive player and their best offensive player, but I still look at that offensive line, knowing what Kleiman wants to do, and they are kind of that. When he came to Kansas State was always an outlier, but the way he does things feels like an outlier still in that conference.
Yeah, as far as Big 12 is concerned, you got Baylor 18-1, which to me I think is pretty good value. I mean, I don't hate it at all. I might roll the dice there. Kansas State's 5-1, probably a little bit more appropriate. That one is intriguing.
It feels
Oklahoma,
like the books have caught up to Kansas State.
I think that, well, they just know Chris Kleiman. I mean, Chris Kleiman, go ahead, bet against him and be prepared to eat crow. Against the spread, they were 9-4 last year. I mean, the guy is just legit. And I wouldn't expect much of a difference. TCU, ironically, 16-1 right now to win the Big 12. We mentioned Texas right at plus money, just a little above. And then Texas Tech 12-1 right now to win the Big 12. So a lot of value to be had there if you don't want to back one of the favorites. But either way, should be really interesting. Let's get to this weekend's games. Not a real sexy slate. Anything that jumps out to you, at least in the early going?
Yeah, I want to see with the new clock stipulations, I think it's really important to keep your eyes. Like I look at the total in the Navy Notre Dame game, right?
Yeah.
We know what Navy wants to do. I see 49.5 out there. I think Notre Dame wins the game throwing the football, knowing that they're going to have advantages. Not saying that they have elite offensive perimeter players, but they're going to be better. There's going to be better speed and better height on that edge. And I want to see Sam Hartman not having to do that slow mesh and actually see him in a real system. Like I'm fired up to see that. I just don't know. Like Navy, like I said, the possessions are going to be limited with this clock. Like if Navy ever gets the lead, it's a whole different world, and that under looks like almost too easy to me.
I love the under. I love the under in that game.
And I was at that game last year in Baltimore, and Navy was getting their doors blown off, and all they did in the second half was blitz the bag off of Drew Pine. I'm sorry, at quarterback, and they got back in the game. So me thinking that, knowing that Hartman is what he is, I could see some big plays for Notre Dame, but I still think Navy's going to play they're going to have a different quarterback. It's not going to be the lacrosse player, but I think, no more cutting. How effective are they going to be in that? So that total is interesting to me. I would take Navy plus the points, but I look at that under. The other one, I think the clock stipulations is that Hawaii-Vandy game. Like I watched that tape last year. The end zone view, I still am mesmerized.
How do you not lay the 17.5 with Vandy? It feels too good to be true, right?
And I like that over too, because we know what Hawaii wants to do.
Right.
But I just look at the superior, being superior in a roster. Swan's going to be the guy at quarterback. I think he's doable, especially in a game.
They got good weapons. They got good weapons.
And speed and strength. I like Vandy in the over in that game. The SC game is the tough one because
I like the over. It's steamed though. I liked it better at 63.5. Now it's at 66.5. It's a big price, but Chevin Cordero can make some plays, and I could see them continuing to press the gas pedal there. Now Lincoln Riley in week 1 games against mismatched opponents, he wins by an average of like 34.5 points a game. That line's right at 31-ish. So I don't feel real comfortable about the side, but I do like the over because I think that SC could easily get to 50. Yes. And I really believe that Chevin Cordero can probably get you to 21 based on what he's done in the past offensively at San Jose.
I look at San Jose State. They have one of the toughest out of conference. Like they go to the Coliseum, then they go to Corvallis, and then they have to go to like Toledo.
Yeah.
So like how bad are they getting beat? Like, does he want to save Cordero? And on the other side, to your point with the over, SC's got guys behind Caleb Williams that are fighting for that number 2 spot. So, like you said, Lincoln Riley's that foot is going to be on the gas. I do like that over. I could see that freaking thing going off at 70 by the time kickoff. So, if you want it, get it now. I mean, it's already up. What do I see? 66.5 now. Right. You mentioned 63.5. And blindly, I'll just take Jerry Kill given the points against UMass.
What about Jacksonville State? Sprinkle a little there. That line's coming back a little bit. Rich Rod and co. I think their first game, first opportunity play, FBS competition. It is an FBS school. I think they get it done. So maybe just go with the Gamecocks a little bit there with Jacksonville State as well.
Is Coach Trickett back as the offensive line coach for Coach Rod?
I need to double check on that, but I believe he is.
I think I was looking at the coaching. I think I saw him his whole life. Like, good luck to those Jacksonville State offensive linemen.
They've put it this way, they've had a tough camp, I would imagine. If Rick Trickett's there, they've had a tough camp. That's for sure. Stevie, this is great, buddy. Awesome breakdown. We'll do it again at some point here in a few weeks, but we appreciate your time today, brother. And, hey, good luck this weekend.
I appreciate it, man. And I'll see you in Charlotte week 1.
Sounds good. All right, couple things that we need to take a peek at heading in to week 0. I'm going to be honest with you. We're not going to spend a lot of time breaking down these matchups because I'm not really concerned for Notre Dame. If I'm going to be completely honest, I'm not really concerned naturally for USC. They're north of 3 touchdown favorites in both games. USC is favored by 31 points. I'm not going to waste a ton of time telling you, hey, here's how San Jose State can win the game. Here's how Navy can win the game. I'm not going to focus on that. I think Notre Dame can get to the college football playoff. I think USC can potentially get to the college football playoff as well. I believe that those things are possible, but a few things have to happen for me to feel better about their candidacy as a playoff team. Here's what I'm watching for USC. I'm going to be looking at the freshmen. Naturally, it's week 1. I want to see the freshmen. I want to see Tackett Curtis. I want to see the receivers. I want to see the young guys. I want to see Dorian Singer, the transfer from Arizona. I want to see the young guys and how well they play. But more importantly for USC, the focus for me is going to be on the newcomers on the defensive side. I want to see Mason Cobb. I want to see Bear Alexander. I want to see Christian Roland Wallace on the edge, on the perimeter. Those are the guys I'm paying attention to because when I look at USC's personnel, offensively, they're going to score. We know that. Yes, am I going to want to watch Caleb Williams? Of course. He's one of the best players of his generation. Of course, we're going to watch him. We're going to be watching him closely. But I want to see more what guys have emerged on the defensive front. And they're going to be going against a very nimble, athletic quarterback in Chevin Cordero. Chevin Cordero is going to run around. He's going to be problematic at times, perhaps. He's going to be a little crazy. As far as, I don't want to say he's careless, but he's going to do some things that are maybe a little off the wall. He's a little bit like Jaden DeLora for you Pac-12 fans. He's a little bit like Jaden DeLora at Arizona because he's a little unpredictable with how he might approach it. He's a veteran guy too. He's played a ton of football. So I want to see, are they able to contain him? Are they able to kind of wall him off, not allow him to escape the pocket? Because there are some athletic quarterbacks that SC will face. That's going to be paramount as they move forward into the season. So I'm focusing on the defensive side, mostly the newcomers for the Trojans. For Notre Dame, few things that I'm very, very interested in. I'm watching the wide receivers really closely. I'm really going to watch that group. I believe that group is improved. I do. Right now, I don't know what the pecking order is. I'm not sure anybody does. I think you ask their wide receiver staff. They're not going to tell you necessarily what the pecking order is going to be like throughout the course of the season. And maybe week 1's not a great indicator of where they're going to prioritize their targets. But it gives me something. I'm going to be watching those guys. What kind of separation are they able to get from the defenders? What kind of timing are they working with? Are they getting their depths on the routes? So when it says a 12-yard curl, and I'm not going to necessarily know the plays, but based on the quarterback's footwork, I'm probably going to be able to tell you, yes, he was deep, yes, he was short, or he was right on. Let's hope, it's Goldilocks and it's just right every single time. Sam Hartman, going to be watching him closely as well. We know he's an all-time accomplished quarterback statistically in college football, but this is a very different offense. This, more than likely, is going to be a little bit more drop back, a little bit more traditional. He has lived in an RPO system where he is making post-snap reads by feeling defenders and looking at movement of defenders while the ball is in the belly of the running back. He is forcing defenders to move with the action between him and the running back. Well, now he might be having to force defenders to move with his eyes. Can he manipulate defenders? How are his feet? He is a little unorthodox, can sometimes throw off balance, will move, adjust his arm angle, do a lot of really nice things. But if he does need to just drop straight back and throw it on time and accurately, how comfortable is he doing it at this stage of the Notre Dame season? I feel really good about both. I think SC is going to have improved defensive play. I think Sam Hartman is going to be really comfortable. I think the Notre Dame wide receivers are going to be better than they were a year ago. So those are the things I'm watching. That's what I really want to see this weekend when those teams take the field. As far as Fandy's concerned, as far as some of the other teams are concerned, Fandy, I want to see the passing attack. Their only way, I think, they're going to need to be better on defense collectively. We know that. But I do want to see A.J. Swan. How much has he progressed? He's got really talented wideouts. Are they on the same page? Are they able to carve up the defense in Hawaii that was not really up to par at any point last year? Do they pick up where they started last year? Remember, they played really good football down the stretch. Vanderbilt did. They didn't play good against Tennessee in the final game of the regular season. They needed that one to get to bowl eligible, but they did play pretty well in the couple games leading up to that. So do they pick up where they left off with a young second-year quarterback and a talented wide receiver core? So I'll be watching that group specifically when the Doors take the field. That'll do it for us here at Always College Football. Please continue to like, rate, and subscribe. It helps us out. It helps the show out. For all of us here at Always College Football, for Mark, Jake, Jack, I'm Greg. Happy week 0. Ladies and gentlemen, we made it. The offseason is over. We got games kicking off in 24 hours, so buckle up. Get you a couple chin straps. Get you a couple pairs of socks. Get you a couple mouthpieces, and let's get ready to ride. Nothing but college football from this point forward. So have a great weekend. Enjoy the action, and remember, it's always college football. Hey guys, it's Greg McElroy. Thanks for watching Always College Football. Make sure you like, rate, and subscribe to ESPN's YouTube channel and wherever you listen to your podcasts.